بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. So we're into our third or fourth night of Ramadan, depending upon where we started or where we're at, and we continue to read from the Al-Fath al-Rabbani wa al-Rahmani of Sayyidi Muhyiddin Abd al-Qadir al-Jilani radiyallahu anhu, the sublime revelation and the divine merciful outpourings, these set of discourses that he delivered over a period of 2 years or so in Medina al-Salam, the city of peace, Baghdad, while he was living there. And we know from before that the Shaykh, had he had his own choice, he would have not stayed in Baghdad. It was a very cosmopolitan place that had a little bit of everything. And Shaykh Abd al-Qadir, he preferred to be in isolation with his Lord Azza wa Jal. And then when he got to the outskirts of the city and he was ready to go to the desert, then he heard a voice call to him, an inner voice in his sir, that where are you going, what you need for your deen, not just the protection of the other people's deen, but your deen as well, is for you to be amongst the people. So I think at this point, and we've read through at least over half of the majalis, the discourses, we can see kind of a general message that the Shaykh is trying to deliver. And one of them is that we should be attached solely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the highest level. So not even attached to paradise or to a fear of hellfire per se, but to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to seek anyone besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was speaking to these thousands of people and telling them this, and many of them made tawbah, many of them came back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who hadn't accepted Islam yet came and accepted Islam. So he was kind of a true da'i, caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah be pleased with him. So we're up to the 35th discourse, and it's quite short, so I think we are going to get to the 36th one as well. So some of these we might be reading 2 or so in each one. The last discourse, inshallah, we'll get to it during Ramadan. Number 62 is quite long, so that one might take us a few more than one session, so we'll make up for it as we go along. So he said, وَيْحَكُمْ يَا مُتَكَبِّرِينَ عبادتكم لا تدخل الأرض إنما تصعد السماء قال الله عز وجل إليه يصعد الكلم الطيب والعمل الصالح يرفعه ربنا عز وجل على العرش استوى وعلى الملك احتوى وعلمه محيط بالأشياء مبدع 7 آيات في القرآن في هذا المعنى لا يمكنني محوها لأجل جهلك ورعونتك تفزعني بسيفك ما أفزع ترغبني في مالك ما أرغب في مالك ما أرغب إنما أخاف الله عز وجل وما أخاف غيره أرجوه ولا أرجو غيره أعبده ولا أعبد غيره أعمل له ولا أعمل لغيره رزقني عنده وبيده رزقي عنده وبيده كل له العبد وما يملك لمولاه وذكر أنه أسلم على يده قدر 500 نفس وتاب أكثر من 20,000. قال وهذا من بركات نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم عالم الغيب فلا يظهر على غيبه أحدا إلا من ارتضى من رسول. So let's look at that in the English. So he said, woe unto you, O arrogant ones, your acts of worship, ibadat, do not enter the earth, they only ascend to heaven. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, to him good words ascend, إِلَيْهِ يَصْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ, and righteous deed he does exalt. وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُ. Our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala has mounted the throne and encompassed the kingdom. His knowledge is comprehensive of all things. He is the mubdi', the author of 7 verses of ayat in the Quran to this effect. I cannot erase them for the sake of your ignorance and stupidity, however much you terrify me with your sword or excite my desire for your money. I fear only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and of none but him am I afraid. On him I pin my hope, and to none but him do I look in hope. I worship him, and I worship none but him. I work for his sake, and I do not work for the sake of any but him. My sustenance is with him and in his hand. Everything belongs to him. The slave or the abd and all he possesses belong to his master. And then the scribe here is saying about the Shaykh, he mentioned that as many as 500 souls had come to Islam at his hand, and that more than 20,000 had repented. And he said, this is among the blessings or the barakah of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then he recited the verse, عَالِمُ الْغَيْبِ فَلَا يُظْهِرُ عَلَى غَيْبِهِ أَحَدًا. Allah is known or unseen, and he reveals his secret to no one except to every messenger whom he has chosen. So let's look at the verse that he quotes in the beginning here. إِلَيْهِ يَصْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُهُ. So other verses of the Quran talk about al-kalim al-tayyiba, كالشجرة الطيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها. So the parable of the good word or the good words is similar to the parable of the good tree, and this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compares the two. So the good word, as in the good tree, أصلها ثابت. So the asl, or there's a foundation. So the foundation of it is well rooted, right? Because a tree is well rooted, and the stronger the tree is, then the more outstretched its roots will be underneath the ground, though you may not see that. So to uproot, because that's what the word we use, to uproot a tree is quite a oftentimes expensive and very difficult affair to do, because it's not just to chop it off from the trunk is one thing, but to uproot it, to take it out from underneath and remove the roots from underneath, that's quite difficult. And that's, if you're trying to do that on your land or something to clear the land, people who know about that know that is multiple times in terms of expense and just cutting the tree down. So the asl is thabit, right? And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us these things in the natural world, so to speak, and the things that we can observe before us, for us to contemplate and reflect upon, and they have their counterparts in the spiritual realm. So just like the tree that is firm and well rooted in the ground, and then that's a tree that grows, right? And then you have the trunk that grows up, and then the branches that go out, and then from the branches, the fruit comes out, in a fruit tree like an apple tree or an orange tree, a citrus tree. And then off of those branches comes the fruit, and so it bears its fruit. And people benefit from that. But none of that would have happened. None of that would have happened if the tree wasn't well rooted to begin with. So it will not bear fruit. It will not grow. It will not do any of those things unless you plant it firmly in the ground and you have a firm plantation of that tree. And additionally, some of them have also said that it's not just enough to plant it in the middle of the forest and then go away, then hope everything's going to turn out okay. The tree will grow, but it may not bear the fruit in the manner that you want it to unless there is some ri'ayah, there is some maintenance. You have to be maintaining it and maintaining its upkeep and irrigating it and making sure that it's getting enough sunlight and all those sorts of things. So the person who does that, we call that a type of tarbiyah, right? That's what the job of the murabbi. So the murabbi is maintaining. That thing will grow by itself, but it will not grow in a manner that will be of the greatest benefit and bear fruit unless it has someone taking care of it. So they also describe this relationship of the believer with their teachers or with their mentors or with their shuyukh, that it needs some ri'ayah, that it needs some upkeep and some maintenance, and someone watching over it, and someone making sure that it's getting enough water and irrigation and so forth, and sunlight. And if there are weeds that are beginning to grow around it that may affect the roots, then to take care of those things. So that's a shajara al-tayyiba, that is the good tree. And the good word is similar. So where do the words begin? The words begin inside of you, right? They begin as a thought. They begin as uh, maybe perhaps an inspiration, and then something that you want to communicate to others. But if it's not based in that, if it doesn't have a firm foundation within yourself, in other words, it's not firmly established and rooted, the words before they are said, then they will not rise, right? Because it says here, إِلَيْهِ يَصْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ. So the good word will rise. In other words, it will rise and it will be in your mizan al-hasanat. It will be in your scale of good deeds, because words are deeds also. So words are not kind of like something separate. They are deeds in the sense that we will be taken into account for the things that we say. نَحْنُ مُحَاسَبُونَ عَلَى مَا نَقُولُ. And one of the Sahaba, when they heard about this, they even asked the Prophet ﷺ, they said, أَنَحْنُ مُحَاسَبُونَ عَلَى مَا نَقُولُ. Are we actually really taking into account for the things that we say? I mean, that was extraordinary for him to picture that. They're just words. And then the Prophet ﷺ replied back to him, وَهَلْ يَكُبُّ النَّاسُ عَلَى مَنَاخِرِهِمْ أَوْ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ فِي رِوَايَةٍ إِلَّا حَصَائِدُ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ. And are people not dragged on their noses or dragged on their faces in other narration, except for what their tongues have reaped? You know, that which you have said, you will be taken into account with that. وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُ. And also the good deeds, al-amal al-salih, the righteous deeds, يَرْفَعُ. So here, al-rafa, or to be raised, is also another way of saying it's accepted. Allah has accepted those deeds. And we said in the previous session that a sign of acceptance is that you no longer see your deeds. You are not anticipating and kind of have in the front of your mind, oh, I did, XYZ, and I built that orphanage, and I established this mosque, and I did this thing. And so, you kind of remind yourself of it all the time and say, oh yeah, I did this, I did that. Then the word I is still there, is creeping in. لا العمل الصالح يرفعه. So يرفعه منك. So it's raised from you and goes to Allah, like as if you don't see it anymore. You're not cognizant anymore. You're not thinking about it. You're not anticipating or expecting, or even for some requesting or demanding some sort of recompense, reward for that particular deed that you did. The deed itself is a reward in and of itself. That is a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you. He has given you your jaza. He has given you your reward by accepting it from you and raising it to Him, rather than you seeking something above and beyond that. And so, as we see throughout, the Shaykh is emphasizing the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above all else. And the words that you say, the things that you do, we want to try to get to a point where we even have a detachment from the things that we do and the words that we say. And what we mean by detachment is in its face, you'll have then an attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So rather than an attachment, I did this thing and I'm saying this thing and I'm doing these things, rather the attachment is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then will give you what is the batin, what is the underbelly of what good deeds are, which we call tawfiq, success. So when we say هذا فلان موفق, this person is, he's successful, or he has divine providence. هذا من حيث الباطن. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, and that's what drives them. And then their deeds, which is what you see that's apparent to everybody else, those belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anyway, and they are raised. And the idea then is to move on to the next thing. So you're busy with your time and cultivating your time. You can think of it as like a farmer cultivates their land, and it's very intensive, and they have to keep watch over it, and they can't just think about what they did yesterday. Now they have to think about what I need to do today, and the day after that, and the day after that. And then at the end, at harvest time, that whole time when they're cultivating, they don't know exactly how the harvest is going to turn out. It could be a good harvest, it could be a middling harvest, or it could be not such a great harvest. But nevertheless, the farmer has a belief, a faith, if you will, that they're doing the right thing, and even they're not assured of a particular outcome, but they know their own work is kind of an outcome in of itself. So similarly, when we're cultivating our time, we're planting the seeds, we are irrigating, we are watching over it, we are making sure that the weeds are cleared, we give it attention, we give it ri'ayah. This is our time. And then at harvest time, in the akhirah, in the next life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will determine what that outcome is. And then we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us min ahl as-sa'ada, wa la yaj'alna min ahl ash-shaqawa, that He makes us from the people who are felicitous, or the ones who are the people of sa'ada, of true happiness in the next life, and not to make us from the ones who are of shaqawa, or the ones who are the wretched, who will be wretched in the next life. So there's a little bit more left in that discourse, but I'd rather move to the next one because there's a big chunk of it that I want to look at that kind of is very methodical in the way that he presents it. So I want to do that. So let's move on to the 36th discourse. We'll read it from the top, the beginning. So he says, رضي الله عنه: هذه الدنيا سوق بعد ساعة لا يبقى في أحد عند مجيء الليل يذهب أهله منه اجتهدوا إنكم لا تبيعون ولا تشترون في هذه السوق إلا ما ينفعكم غدا في سوق الآخرة فإن الناقد بصير توحيد الحق عز وجل الإخلاص في العمل له هو النافق هناك وهو قليل عندكم يا غلام كن عاقلا ولا تستعجل فإنه ما يقع بيدك شيء بعجلتك لا تجيء وقت الغروب ووقت الصبح فهلا صبرت وتشاغلت حتى يجيء وقت المغرب وتنال ما تريد كن عاقلا وتأدب مع الحق عز وجل وخلقه لا تظلم الخلق وتطلب منهم ما ليس لك عندهم لا كلام حتى يأتي التوقيع إلى التوكيل أو إلى الوكيل فحينئذ ترى العطاء قبل التوقيع لا يعطي ذرة لا يعطونك ذرة ولا نذرة ولا بحرا ولا قطرة إلا بإذن الله عز وجل وتوقيعه وإلهامه لقلوبهم كن عاقلا هذا هو العقل أثبت مكانك بين يدي الحق عز وجل فإن الرزق مقسوم عنده وبيده. So the 36 discourses are following. That's page 216. It says the world is a marketplace in which after a short while there will be no one remaining. As night falls, its people will all depart from it. You must be careful to sell and buy in this market only that which will be useful to you tomorrow in the market of the hereafter. For the assayer has a sharp eye for separating good coin from bad. Affirmation of the oneness, tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sincerity in working for Him, this is the currency in circulation over there, and you have very little of it. Be sensible and do not try to rush ahead, for you will gain nothing by being in such a hurry. You cannot arrive at the time of sundown while it is still the morning time, so why not be patient and keep yourself busy until the time of sunset comes and you can get what you want. Be sensible and behave properly with the Lord of Truth, Azza wa Jal, and His creatures. Do not treat people unfairly and demand of them what they do not have to offer you. There is nothing to be said until the wakil, he says attorney, I would say agent, gets the signature or the tawqiyah. Only then will you see the tender. Before the signing, not a jot will be handed over. They will give you neither a jot nor a speck, neither an ocean nor a drop, except with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His signature and His inspiration, or His ilham, to their hearts, it should read, not your hearts. Be sensible, this is intelligence. Take your place firmly before the Lord of Truth, Azza wa Jal, for sustenance is apportioned in His presence and by His hand. So the Shaykh gives another kind of parable or metaphor here, comparing the world to a souk, to a marketplace. And this marketplace is very unique in that it's only open for a very short time. And even though there are many, many things being sold and bartered for and traded and bargained for in this marketplace, there are only quite a few things that are actually going to be worth anything when the marketplace closes down, when the souk closes down. So he said in this marketplace, that which is valuable is affirmation of tawheed, ikhlas, sincerity in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nothing is going to be given back to you. Nothing, you're not going to reap the reward of it until the wakil, right, until the agent does the tawqiyah, signs off on it. Here, in this sense, I think that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission, will you receive anything? So nothing that is supposed to come to you will be withheld from you. So no one has the power to withhold anything from you which is supposed to come to you. And all that is supposed to come to you will come to you, and without delay, and the apportioned time that has been set by the one who does the tawqiyah, the one whose signature counts, namely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So nothing is really ever delayed. Nothing is outside of its time. Nothing is has gone wrong in the sense of the thing that's supposed to come to you. So he's saying, have tawakkul in the wakil. So if you're going to put your agency, put complete agency in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then everything will be in the manner that inshallah that you seek. Bismillah ta'ala. So there's a section down here that's a few paragraphs down. I'll read the Arabic first. He says, يا غلام إذا لم يكن لك إسلام فما يكون لك إيمان وإذا لم يكن لك إيمان فلا يكون لك إيقان وإذا لم يكن لك إيقان فما يكون لك معرفة له وعلم به هذه درجات وطبقات إذا صح لك الإسلام صح لك الاستسلام كن مسلما إلى الله عز وجل في جميع أحوالك مع حفظ حدود الشرع والملازمة له سلم له في حق نفسك وغيرك أحسن الأدب معه ومع خلقه لا تظلم نفسك ولا غيرك فإن الظلم ظلمات في الدنيا والآخرة الظلم يظلم القلب ويسود الوجه والصحائف لا تظلم ولا تعاون ظالما فإن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال ينادي مناد يوم القيامة أين الظلمة أين أعوان الظلمة أين من برى لهم قلما أين من لاقى لهم دوات أجمعوهم وجعلوهم في تابوت من نار أعوذ بالله اهرب من الخلق واجهد ألا تكون مظلوما ولا ظالما وإن قدرت فكن مظلوما ولا تكن ظالما مقهورا لا قاهرا نصرة الحق عز وجل للمظلوم ولا سيما إذا لم يجد ناصرا من الخلق عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إذا ظلم من لم يجد ناصرا غير الحق عز وجل فإنه يقول لأنصرنك ولو بعد حين والصبر سبب للنصرة والرفعة والمعزة. So he says here, page 217, the third paragraph, if you're following. O young man, if you have no surrender, Islam, then you will have no faith, Iman. So him here, he means Islam in the meaning of al-istislam, and how, which means to submit, or he calls it here surrender. So surrendering outwardly then is a prerequisite for Iman, which is what he means here as maqamat al-Iman. So the spiritual states of Iman. So then he says, if you have no faith, no Iman, you will have no conviction, you will have no iqan, certainty. So it begins with the outward acts, what we call the sunnah, what we call Islam, what we call the deen, what we call mu'amalat, what we call prayer and ibadah and fasting, zakah, all those things. These are all things have been perfectly, for lack of a better word, designed and chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the manner that they were, and then revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, here, take this. This is exactly what human beings need to find me and to find certainty in me, and if they follow this, they will be led down that way. So that's what these acts are. They're not just there for us to do when we feel like it, or if we feel inspired to do them, but they are the path, and there's no other path. So he says, if you do not surrender, if you have no surrender Islam, you will have no faith, Iman. If you have no faith, then you have no conviction, iqan, certainty. If you have no conviction or certainty, then you will have no experience, ma'rifah, right, which is spiritual experience. Now it's like seeing Allah with the eyes of your heart and not just doing things based upon surrendering to what you know to be true, but actually seeing what you know to be true with the eyes of your heart. This is what we call ma'rifah. So you then, if you don't have any of those prerequisites, you will have no experience, ma'rifah, and knowledge of Him. These are degrees, darajat, and levels, tabaqat. When Islam becomes real for you, obedience, submission, or istislam will be real for you. So when your outward practice of Islam, when your surrender becomes true, then this istislam also will become real for you. Be one who surrenders to Allah under all circumstances while observing the rules of the sacred law, shara, and sticking to them. Submit to Him all that concerns yourself and others. Be on your best behavior with Him and with His creatures. You must not treat yourself and others unjustly, for injustice, dhulm, casts dark shadows, dhulumat, in this world and the hereafter. So notice how right after he talks about istislam and Islam and iman and iqan and conviction and certainty, then he talks about dhulm, then he talks about oppression or injustice. So don't be the one who has injustice perpetrated upon them. That's al-mazlum. We don't want to be mazlum. And certainly we don't want to be the zalim. We don't want the one who is the perpetrator of injustice either. And the Quran says, Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. So the worst dhulm, the worst injustice, is to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not to submit to the direction and to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a type of dhulm also, a type of injustice, and it's the worst type of injustice. But then that injustice can then branch out into injustice to Allah's creatures. So if you're unjust with Allah, then how would it be expected that you would not be also not just with Allah's creatures? The Umar ibn al-Khattab, he said, and this is recorded in the Muwatta, he said, من ضيع الصلاة فكان لغيرها أضيع أو كما قال. Whoever is negligent or remiss or has not been following the prayer, salah, properly, فكان لغيرها أضيع. Then they will also be even more remiss and negligent in any other obligations in life that they have. So it is a criteria of uprightness. It is a criteria of, inshallah, experiencing some of these maqamat al-iman, that we have to at least be praying 5 times a day, and we have to be doing it on time, and we have to be at least somewhat, not lazy and remiss about it, but somewhat serious, if not inspired, to do it consistently and on time, and so forth. So, yes, the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there, and it's there for you to take, and inshallah you will find it. But if you think it's going to come by just tamanniyat, just by wishful thinking, nothing comes by wishful thinking. Al-Raja'u ma qaran wa amal wa illa umniyya, as Ibn Al-Fath al-Secondary says. True hope and having hope in Allah's mercy and in His providence and in His grace is that which is accompanied by amal, that which is accompanied by you striving and you doing your best with it. This is the adab, the etiquette with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa illa fahuwa umniyya. Otherwise, it's just a wishful thinking, that it will happen. Allah Ghafur Rahim, Allahu Azizun Hakim, Allahu Kada, He'll take care of me. Yes, He'll take care of you, inshallah, but is that the type of relationship you want to have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or does He say to you, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا? The ones who strive for us in our way, then we will give them ways to us. نَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا, the ways to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, you must not treat yourself and others unjustly, for injustice casts dark shadows, dhulumat, in this world and the hereafter. Injustice darkens, yadlimu, the heart, and stains the face and skin on an inward place and sometimes even outwardly. Do not commit injustice and do not assist the zalim, right? Someone who commits injustice or a tyrant. For the Prophet ﷺ has said, a crier will call out on the day of resurrection. He He will say, where are the tyrants? Where are the tyrants' helpers? Where is he who nibbed the pen for them, or sharpened the pencil for them? Where is he who prepared an inkwell for them, assembled them and put them in a coffin of fire? So he says, flee from creatures and try to be neither a victim of tyranny, a mazloom, nor a tyrant, nor someone who perpetuates injustice. If you are capable of it, be a victim of tyranny and do not be a tyrant. Be oppressed and not an oppressor. The help of the Lord of the truth, haqq, comes to the victim of tyranny, especially when he finds no helper among his creatures. The Prophet ﷺ is reported of having said, if someone is treated unjustly and can find no helper other than the Lord of truth, he will say, I will surely help you, even if after a while. Patience is a means of obtaining help and promotion and honor. So interesting that it's better to be mazloom than zalim. It's better to be oppressed than the oppressor. It's better to be a victim of tyranny than a tyrant. Why? Because if you are mazloom, then you avail yourself of the nusrah, right, of Allah's aid and of Allah's providence. Where if you are the zalim, you are the tyrant or the oppressor, you are deprived of this. You may seem like you have the upper hand in this world, and that may appear to you as such, but in the reality of all things, which includes this life and in the next life, you certainly don't have the upper hand. And how many are the examples that we find, for example, in the Quran of the zalim, of the tyrant, and the mazlumin? So Pharaoh, you can make an argument, Fir'aun in the Quran is maybe the worst tyrant, or one of the worst tyrants. And he even declared for himself rububiyyah. He said, Ana rabbukum al-a'la. He declared himself the Lord, and he said that I can, I can give life and I can take away life and that sort of thing. And but yet he was unable even to save himself from drowning in the Red Sea. And look at the mother of Moses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and she was from the Bani Israel, and they were not affluent, and she was fearing for the life of her young son, who was just an infant. And Pharaoh, because he had heard of the prophecy of what was to be Musa alayhi salam, he ordered that all of the firstborns of the Israelites should be executed. And so she was afraid for her son. And then she received wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the words of the Quran. Allah inspired her to place her young baby Musa alayhi salam, in the mahad, in the cradle, and float it down the Nile, and inshallah something good would happen after that. So the same, similar body of water, the Red Sea with Fir'aun, and then the Nile River. Musa is placed in there with no protection. Back then, the Nile had crocodiles in it. There was no Aswan Dam that all of the crocodiles went on the other side of the dam in the artificial Lake Nasser. That all came much later. So there were crocodiles in the Nile. And she put her young baby in a cradle, a floating one at that, down the Nile. And so, and yet he survived. Allah protected him. And they were mazloom. They were wronged. Who goes around and kills the firstborn of people? But in that state of dhulm that they were under, he survived, and he found himself in the household of the zalim, the one who was the one child that he really was supposed to be afraid of and that he wanted to preclude the existence of, became almost like an adopted son to him and raised in the very same household. This is the nusrah, right, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And later on, Musa alayhi salam would not suckle from any other woman except his mother. And so she also became his wet nurse, even though she was also his mother at the same time. And other tyrants in the Quran, like Nimrud, the tyrant of Ibrahim, right, the one who said, Ana uhyi al-mawta, I can give life. And then Ibrahim alayhi salam said, if this is true, then why don't you bring the sun from the west instead of the east? فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ, right? He didn't have a response to this. So we see this relationship between ظالم and mazloom. That's why the Quran exhorts us to take the position of afu if we find ourselves in a position of dhulm. وَأَن تَعْفُوا أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى, right? And to pardon people is closer to taqwa, because the line between zalim and mazlum is a fine one. All you have to do is, if you are wronged and then you seek retribution, or you seek something that is beyond your right, and then you find yourself on the other side of the dhulm line, let's call it the line of dhulm. Now you have become a zalim. So you could be zalim mazlum fi anin wahid. You could be both the zalim, the oppressor, and the oppressed at the same time. You could be the oppressor from the angle of this particular relationship with this person, and you can also be the mazlum. You could be the one who's being oppressed from the relationship from another person. And so Shaykh here is telling us, try not to be that zalim, right? If kana wala bud, right? And somehow this is what you find yourself in, then at least don't be the oppressor. And if you're the one being oppressed, if you give up something, right, of your right, so that you don't land on the wrong line of dhulm, then that's a better position for you for al-akhirah. It's a better position for you with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than seeking to take your right exactly as is, because you may be on the wrong side of that. So there was a little bit more that we wanted to do, but somehow the time has eluded us. So we will stop here, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, barakallahu fikum.